We are living in the loudest generation in human history. Every scroll, every click, every conversation is filled with noise, opinions, arguments, distractions. Yet in the middle of all this unrest, people are not looking for more noise. They're searching for clarity. In this age of confusion, the world doesn't need more echoes. It needs voices, true, clear, and courageous. This is a time when being silent is dangerous and being shallow is destructive. If there was ever a moment to rise and speak with purpose, it is now. The age of unrest demands a generation that would speak with clarity. The noise of the age is more than just an overwhelming atmosphere. It is a condition, a psychological and spiritual environment that has subtly invaded every part of human existence. It is in our homes, in our relationships, in our inner thoughts. It is the mental clutter that leaves people constantly stimulated, yet perpetually empty. We are no longer living in an age of reflection. We are living in an age of reaction. Everything is urgent. Everything demands a response. And if you don't respond quickly, you're left behind, forgotten, irrelevant. This has created a global culture that is addicted to speed but allergic to silence. In the past, people had time to think deeply, to wrestle with ideas, to question their values, and to find meaning. Today, meaning is often sacrificed for momentum. The faster it spreads, the more valuable it seems. But speed without direction is chaos. The noise of the age has turned people into followers of whatever is trending, rather than leaders of what is true. And while technology has connected the world, it has also amplified every voice without measuring the weight of what is being said. Everyone has a platform, but not everyone has perspective. And so the world becomes a noisy battleground of narratives, each voice fighting to be heard, but few offering clarity, hope, or vision. This constant barrage of voices creates anxiety. People don't even realize how much of their fear, their doubt, their indecision is fueled not by what they believe, but by what they are exposed to. The noise creates a pressure to conform, a fear of missing out, and an internal conflict between who we are and who we think we need to become. We compare, we compete, and we chase images of success, relevance, and approval, images shaped by noise, not truth. In this environment, it becomes incredibly difficult to hear your own voice, let alone the voice of God or the voice of purpose. Even in matters of faith, the noise has crept in. Messages that were once sacred are now diluted for popularity. Deep spiritual truths are often reduced to catchphrases, and the pursuit of personal transformation is replaced by the pursuit of personal branding. What should have been a journey of purpose has become a performance for likes, shares, and validation. This is not just a cultural issue, it is a spiritual crisis. Because in all the noise, people are losing touch with the still, quiet voice that truly guides, heals, and restores. This kind of noise doesn't just distract, it deceives. It leads people to believe they are informed when they are misled. It convinces them that they are progressing when they are only moving in circles. It promotes expression over wisdom, opinion over truth, and visibility over authenticity. And the more noise there is, the more pressure there is to produce it, to contribute to it, to survive in it. People are exhausted, not just because of work or responsibilities, but because their minds are constantly overstimulated, constantly comparing, constantly reacting. The human soul was not designed to endure this kind of relentless mental traffic. Something begins to break on the inside. The most dangerous part of the noise is that it numbs us to what really matters. It desensitizes us to truth, to beauty, to compassion, to conviction. We begin to tolerate what we once knew was wrong. We begin to doubt what we once believed with certainty. And in the search for peace, we settle for distractions. In the desire for community, we settle for crowds. In the longing for purpose, we settle for productivity. And all the while, the voice of clarity, quiet, patient, steady, is waiting to be heard. The noise of the age has trained people to listen with their emotions, not with their discernment, to react with their feelings, not with their values. And in a world like this, clarity becomes rare, even threatening. People who speak with conviction, who carry a clear sense of identity and vision, often stand out as strange or confrontational, not because they are loud, but because they are unmoved by the noise around them. This is the kind of person the world is desperate for, even if it doesn't know it. A voice that doesn't just add to the chaos, but cuts through it. A voice that doesn't follow the current, but redirects it. A voice that doesn't just speak to be heard, but speaks because it has something worth saying. In the age of unrest, this noise is both the symptom and the weapon. It is what confuses people and what is used to keep them confused. And unless individuals rise above it, unless they silence the noise within, they will never find the clarity they were born to carry. Because the truth is, the world doesn't need more noise. It needs more light, more truth, more purpose. And that will never come from the echo. It will come from the voice. Information overload, wisdom deficiency is the paradox of our time. We live in a world where access to knowledge is no longer the problem. Any question, any topic, any subject can be researched within seconds. We carry libraries in our pockets, encyclopedias in our hands, and opinions in endless supply. Yet despite this abundance of information, people are more confused, more misled, and more uncertain than ever. The problem isn't that we don't know enough, it's that we no longer know what to do with what we know. Information without wisdom creates chaos, because knowledge alone does not guarantee understanding, nor does it produce transformation. The mind was not created to process an infinite stream of content without time for reflection. With every scroll, swipe, or search, we are bombarded with facts, opinions, arguments, images, and noise. There is no filter, no pause, no prioritization. We consume, and consume, thinking we're becoming smarter while actually becoming more scattered. And in this flood of information, everything begins to feel equally important, equally urgent, equally true. We begin to lose the ability to discern what matters, what's eternal, and what's simply noise. We mistake memorization for wisdom and data for depth. True wisdom is not just about knowing what is right, it's about knowing when, where, and how to apply it. But wisdom requires silence. It requires meditation. It requires the ability to connect information to values and knowledge to purpose. Wisdom filters out the noise and focuses on the signal. It doesn't react, it reflects. It's not just about the quantity of input, but the quality of insight. And that is exactly what's missing in this age. People are chasing facts without understanding and forming conclusions without context. They read headlines, but not history. They quote voices, but ignore principles. They follow trends, but have no anchor. The result is a society that appears intelligent, but lacks direction. We build faster, but we think slower. We connect globally, but we feel isolated personally. We talk more, but we listen less. Everyone is eager to speak, but very few are willing to learn. And in this rush to keep up with everything, people lose touch with their own convictions. They absorb so much external noise that their inner voice becomes weak, unsure, and easily manipulated. The more we rely on information to guide us, the more we depend on external sources instead of internal grounding. And without that grounding, the very knowledge we seek becomes the tool of our confusion. In a world like this, people don't just need access to truth, they need the capacity to process it. They need wisdom to understand what to ignore, what to embrace, what to question, and what to stand for. But wisdom cannot be downloaded. It is not instant. It is formed through experience, reflection, humility, and alignment with timeless principles. Yet the culture of speed and volume discourages these very things. People want instant answers, not enduring truths. They want results, not revelation. And so the wisdom gap grows wider. Even as the information continues to multiply, this imbalance is dangerous When people are full of knowledge but empty of wisdom, they become unstable. They form opinions quickly and change them just as fast. They follow persuasive voices without testing their substance. They become emotionally reactive, intellectually inconsistent, and spiritually shallow. They know what to say but not what to believe. They know how to argue but not how to build. And eventually, the overload leads to paralysis, too many choices, too many perspectives, too much noise, leaving people unable to move, to decide, or to act with confidence. They become trapped not by ignorance, but by In such a time, the pursuit of wisdom is not just valuable, it is vital, because wisdom is what brings order to information. It's what turns facts into guidance and knowledge into power. Without it, the very tools meant to advance us begin to enslave us. The voices meant to inspire begin to deceive, and the technology meant to connect us begins to distract us from the deeper truths of who we are, why we're here, and what truly matters. Voices shape destiny, because every word we allow into our minds becomes a seed that either feeds our faith or fuels our fear. The voices we listen to, whether internal or external, carry power. They form our beliefs, influence our actions, and ultimately steer the direction of our lives. Long before people make decisions, long before they take action, they are shaped by the words they've accepted as truth. These words may come from parents, teachers, culture, media, friends, enemies, or even themselves. And over time, those voices build a narrative about who they are, what is possible, what they should fear, and what they should pursue. That narrative becomes the internal script by which they live, often without even realizing it. There are voices that empower, and there are voices that imprison. Some voices lift us up with encouragement, vision, and hope, while others tear us down with doubt, shame, and fear. Every voice carries a vibration that resonates with either purpose or distraction. The right voice can awaken potential in a person who thought they were worthless, while the wrong voice can destroy confidence in someone born for greatness. This is why voices are not neutral. They are directional. They do not merely inform. They transform. They can shape the identity of a child, the choices of a leader, the legacy of a generation. Even the voices we don't consciously listen to leave an imprint. A society that constantly repeats messages of fear, scarcity, and division will raise people who live anxiously, strive endlessly, and trust no one. On the other hand, a culture that speaks of values, courage, and unity will develop people who live with meaning, stand with conviction, and build with vision. In every case, the destiny of a person or a people is being written by the voices they embrace. What we hear the most eventually becomes what we believe the deepest, and what we believe shapes our thoughts, our habits, our reactions, and our choices. Destiny is not determined in a moment. It is constructed word by word, belief by belief over time. That's why those who speak into our lives, whether they be mentors, leaders, parents, media, or inner thoughts, play a critical role in our future. If they speak limitation, we live limited. If they speak vision, we begin to see. If they speak confusion, we live distracted. If they speak clarity, we begin to walk with purpose. This is why guarding our ears is as important as guarding our hearts, because once a voice gains access, it begins to build something, either a future or a failure. A single voice at the right time can change the course of someone's life. A simple sentence can unlock healing or unleash harm. The power of words and the weight of voices cannot be underestimated. Throughout history, entire nations have shifted course based on the voice of a single. Movements have been born, wars have been fought, revivals have started, and generations have been transformed. Not just through actions, but through voices that stirred the heart and awakened the soul. In the age of unrest and noise, voices are everywhere, but not all voices deserve attention. Some speak only to manipulate, to confuse, to divide. Others speak to remind us who we truly are and what we were born to do. Those are the voices worth following, worth amplifying, and worth becoming. Because as much as we are shaped by voices, we also become a voice for others. What we've heard, what we've believed, what we've overcome, these become the message we carry, and that message becomes the spark that shapes the destiny of someone else. Clarity comes from identity and purpose, because without knowing who you are and why you exist, everything around you becomes confusing, overwhelming, and uncertain. When a person lacks identity, they are constantly trying to fit into whatever space demands their attention. They become defined by opinions, trends, roles, and expectations, constantly shifting to adapt, constantly adjusting to be accepted. This creates inner conflict because they are chasing a sense of self outside of themselves. They try to become what others applaud instead of who they were created to be. But true clarity does not begin externally, it starts within. It begins with the unshakable awareness of identity, of knowing your value, your design, and your uniqueness, independent of what others say or see. When identity is clear, decisions become easier. You no longer live to impress, but to express. You no longer chase validation because you already possess internal confirmation. You know what aligns with your values and what doesn't. You know what opportunities to pursue and which ones to release. Stop wasting energy trying to prove something and start using that energy to produce something meaningful. Clarity makes you steady. It gives you a lens to interpret life, relationships, and challenges. Instead of being tossed by every new wave of opinion, you stand firm, guided by the compass of who you are. Purpose, on the other hand, gives your identity direction. It takes your design and gives it destination. Without purpose, even a strong identity can feel idle. You may know who you are, but if you don't know what you were created to do, you'll feel unfulfilled. Purpose gives meaning to your pain, structure to your growth, and focus to your gifts. It's the internal fire that keeps you moving forward even when things get tough. It removes the fog of confusion, because when you have a clear why, the what and how begin to take shape. Purpose prioritizes your time, clarifies your goals, and filters your decisions. It shows you what matters most, and more importantly, what doesn't. Together, identity and purpose act like two beams of light, cutting through the darkness of noise and uncertainty. They help you see where you're going, why you're going there, and what you should be doing along the way. They silence the distracting voices because your inner voice grows stronger. They eliminate comparison because your race is now defined, your path is unique, and your mission is personal. You are no longer living in reaction to life, you are living with intention. You are no longer wandering, you are walking in direction. You are no longer guessing, you are guided. Clarity doesn't come from having all the answers. It comes from standing on the right foundation, and that foundation is built on knowing who you are and why you're here. Now is the time to speak, because silence in moments of confusion only adds to the chaos. When truth is absent, lies fill the vacuum. When vision is missing, fear takes the lead. When voices of clarity remain quiet, the loudest and most reckless voices gain influence. This is not an era where neutrality is harmless. Silence is often interpreted as agreement, and passivity becomes a form of participation. In a world filled with noise, misinformation, division, and emotional instability, those who carry insight, wisdom, and truth have a responsibility to rise and speak. Waiting for a perfect moment is no longer an option, because the urgency of the moment demands courage over comfort and boldness over hesitation. Many people hesitate to speak because they doubt their impact, but the power of a voice lies not in its volume, but in its authenticity. A single voice, spoken with conviction and clarity, can pierce through confusion like a light in darkness. Every generation has its defining moments, and in those moments, history remembers the voices that stood up when it mattered. Not the ones who had all the answers, but the ones who refused to let lies go unchallenged, who chose to speak when it was easier to remain quiet, who lifted others with truth rather than joined the chorus of fear. Silence may feel safe, but in critical times, it becomes complicit. The world doesn't just need echoes, it needs voices rooted in truth. Speaking up does not mean shouting over others. It means offering a perspective that brings stability where there is panic, direction where there is wandering, and hope where there is despair. It means anchoring people in principles when culture is drifting. It means reminding people of their identity, their dignity, and their capacity for purpose when everything around them tries to reduce them to labels, opinions, or statistics. To speak now is not to impose, but to influence. It is to be a voice of clarity in an age of confusion, a voice of purpose in a sea of distraction, a voice of truth in a time when facts are twisted and feelings reign. The voices of courage have always been the catalysts of change. They disrupt complacency, they awaken conscience, and they stir hearts to action. Waiting for someone else to speak only delays the healing, the reform, the awakening that could begin with just one sentence spoken with conviction. You don't need a stage, a spotlight, or a crowd. You only need the courage to speak from a place of truth. Whether your words reach one person or a million, what matters is that your voice becomes an instrument of clarity in a generation searching for direction. When good people stay silent, deception gains momentum. When wise people stay quiet, confusion spreads. When those with insight withhold their voice, the world suffers not because of what was said, but because of what was left unsaid. There are conversations waiting for truth. There are hearts waiting for encouragement. There are minds waiting for a word that brings focus in the fog. The world is noisy, yes, but it is also listening. People are searching, questioning, doubting, and wondering. And in that space, every word of truth spoken with love, with wisdom, and with conviction becomes a seed that can grow into change, into healing, into new direction. Not speaking is no longer an option. The time to speak is not someday, it is now. In a world overwhelmed by noise, confusion, and constant change, clarity is the anchor that can guide us through the storm. The challenge is not the volume of information, but the wisdom to discern what truly matters. It is up to each of us to recognize that our voice, rooted in our identity and purpose, has the power to bring order to chaos and light to darkness. We are living in an age where the loudest voices are often the ones driving fear, division, and distraction. Yet those who choose to speak from a place of clarity, conviction, and truth will shape the future. Our world needs voices that stand firm on principles, voices that call people to remember their identity, their worth, and their unique purpose. Clarity comes when we understand who we are and why we are here, and from that clarity, we are empowered to speak. It is time to rise above the noise, to offer the clarity that others seek, and to become the voice of hope, truth, and wisdom in a noisy world. We may not be able to change everything, but we can certainly change the narrative by speaking up and standing for what is true. This is our moment, and the world is waiting for us to step forward. The question is no longer whether we will speak, but when. Let us speak now.